Welcome to the Ryan Jaro podcast, where we talk about history, geopolitics, and everything else in detail. Today, we are going to continue our series in geopolitical weapons. Last time, we talked about refugees being as geopolitical weapons. And if you've missed that, I urge you can go back and refer before you continue on with this episode, so that you can get a little bit of in-depth with what's going on. The reason why I began this series is because that I'm kind of interested in what weapons could be used in terms of geopolitics and everything else. Today we're gonna talk about rare earth elements. I know this is kind of a bit abnormal to ask, but rare earth elements are almost critical to the world of history. Not just history, but geopolitics and everything at play. But they are not rare in nature, but they are rare in supply. And we are going to talk about it in this episode. Let's go. So what exactly are rare earth elements? They are a group of 17 chemical elements found in the Earth's crust, composing of the 15 lanthanides. Now, they may not be rare like geologically. They are rarely found in concentrated geological regions or in a much more concentrated or adequate deposits. To extract one, you have to go the radioactive route, which can potentially damage the environment or even cause a little bit of a radioactive disaster. However, the rare earth elements are very, very essential, even as I'm talking about today. Why, you may ask? It is used in consumer electronics, green energy tech, military systems, medical devices, magnets, batteries, alloys, and even more technologies that are useful for both today and tomorrow. Now, let's go to the things that answer the particular question. Why is it a geopolitical weapon? Now, here is where I can talk a bit of sense, and I hope you can understand this. If you control the supply chains of the rare earth elements, you can control the future and potentially the world. As of today, China dominates the supply chains. 69% of it global mining, 90% of it in its refinery worldwide, as well as its leading in magnet production. Now, remember, China invested in the rare earth elements from the 1980s by offering cheap production costs and a bit of laxity in environmental regulations. Here's where Beijing can literally set the bar, or if it wants leverage. Let's go back to 2010. After a maritime dispute with Japan, China temporarily cut off rare earth exports, crippling Japanese high-tech manufacturing. In 2019, during the United States and Chinese tough wars, China hinted of cutting off the supply chains to the United States. And in 2023, China imposed export licensing requirements for exports and key REEs like gallium and germanium, affecting global production and affecting global chip and solar production. So let's go back to the West. Now here is where they begin to take notice. In the United States, the only large-scale rare earth minerals that the United States can find is in California, a place known as Mountain Pass Mine in California. But here is a bit of a twist. They mined and they sent to the Chinese for refinery and manufacturing from there. Like they just give out their raw materials to them before they realized that they made a mistake. In 2022 to 2024, the United States invested more, that is $1.5 billion in rare earth refining facilities. This is all thanks to the support by funding from the DOE, that is the Department of Energy, and the Pentagon, to assist in rare earth separation, magnet production, and emergency stockpiling. Now, let's set our sights to the European Union. 98% of the rare earths needs imports are from China. So it aims to extract 10%, process 40%, and recycle 15% of its rare earths extracted domestically by 2030. On to Brazil. Now, Brazil follows China by reserves of the rare earth minerals. Now, Aclara Resources invested in $600 million to develop mining and processing infrastructure with plans to supply both South America and the United States. in Saudi Arabia, they signed a deal in 2025 with MP Materials to develop a full rare earth supply chain, that is mining, refining, and magnet manufacturing. Yeah, so that's what's been happening. Now, let's move on and switch gears to another segment. Seems kind of awkward to say, but we need to talk about this. The land of hope, of milk and honey that it's been ignored for a long time. We've guessed it correctly, it's Africa. And we've got to talk about it in this episode. Now, Africa has a lot in terms of reserves and everything underground. If I do remember well, it has around like $24 trillion in minerals that are still yet not mined underground. However, the resource scarce, if you know well, it's underdeveloped in terms of refinery. Like they always export the raw materials outside for a cheaper cost. Now, as of 2024, Africa has produced 612 tons or more in rare earths, leading all thanks to Nigeria, Burundi, and South Africa leading the pack. Well, this is a tiny fraction of the production, but it talks a lot about the potential of the gold and everything else in there. Countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and Namibia are exploring deposits and signing exploration contracts with foreign companies to do so on their behalf. Now, here's where I'm putting my emphasis. Yes, Africa is rich, underground, in terms of how many minerals are still untapped. You never know, maybe even right here, even as I'm speaking, maybe under me if I can find oil. Okay, just pray. I'm just joking. I just hope that I find oil. However, Africa still exports its raw materials at a cheaper cost, and it doesn't have the capacity of refinery or even manufacturing it to sell it at a higher markup price, or even better, maybe assist with keeping up with the supply chains or what's going on in the world. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Literally, the environmental and social costs. I did mention before that rare earth minerals are very, very dirty in terms of mining it. Of course, China dominates, yes, but they used methods that could really cost the environment heavily. In Inner Mongolia, rare earth minerals and its mining activities led to toxic leaks, radioactive contamination, and ecological destruction. Western countries are taking a direction in terms of using EVs or everything concerning green energy, but they have to rely on minerals with dirty footprints that could potentially even be worse than actual crude oil mining. So it's a paradox. To go green, you must go brown, dirty or something like that, if you know what I mean. As of now, we hope that there are efforts in terms of improving recycling of rare earth minerals from e-waste, promoting cleaner extraction techniques like ionic clay leaching, as well as establishing transparent and ethical supply chains. All right, is there going to be a Cold War Part 2? I may say yes and maybe no yet. We might experience a Cold War not over ideologies, okay, maybe, but over materials. EV, solar power, AI, defense systems of the future, they all need one thing: rare earths. And I need to repeat the emphasis again. Whosoever controls the supply chains controls the future economy. Right now, the Chinese are securing their supply chains by the Belt and Road Initiative, and the United States are forging internal and outside alliances by minerals with other Western countries such as the European Union or Australia, Japan, and Canada. The European Union is fast-tracking their diplomacy in Africa and Latin America. Aside from elements, this is more on sovereignty, survival, and supremacy. I know I might sound a bit dramatic, and sorry if I'm becoming a bit of a drama king here, but even though right now they may not be famous as oil and gold, but for tomorrow's technology, even as the world gonna turn green, their control is becoming one of the things that could define the future of geopolitics and maybe pose a challenge in our futures yet ahead. Now, as we all race towards the transition towards green, rare earths are becoming a central key point of a global tug of war, one that could potentially shape diplomacy or conflict and innovation as well. Stay curious, stay informed, because power, like rare earths, hoping but I get petroleum under here, is often hidden at the surface. Do give it a like, a subscribe, and a follow whenever you are listening or watching me from, because next week I'm going to come with a new topic, and I hope that it's going to impact you very soon. But as of now, see you later.